Chapter 11, Lake Nyassa. In the afternoon of the next day, a breeze arose along the river. Livingstone put up the sail, and they moved along even faster than men could row. What a welcomed rest! Chuma and Wikitani had never seen a sailing vessel, let alone ridden in one. "We are like kings with invisible slaves rowing us along," Chuma grinned. 3 days more they traveled with much the same routine, rowing in the morning and sailing in the afternoon, until 4 weeks after leaving the mission station, the river mouth widened and they came out onto Lake Nyassa. It was so big the water seemed to run right into the sky. Dr. Livingstone was even more excited than the boys. He wrote the date in a little book and read it to the boys. "We found Lake Nyassa on September 2nd, 1861. Beaching the boat on a gentle bank, the travelers were met by hundreds of Africans who had never seen a white man before. Even the men were very curious, wanting to touch Livingstone's skin and feel his strange, limp hair. The people were friendly and eagerly provided plenty of food for the newcomers, including fish from the lake. However, they did not speak a language that any of the travelers could understand, so communication was very difficult. But Chuma and Wikitani were impressed with the doctor's skill in learning a new language. Before the evening was over, he had mastered dozens of words and could put together a few simple sentences to the great amusement of the local people. Each day the little boat of explorers traveled farther north on the Great Lake and spent the evening in a new village on the shore. As soon as Livingstone was able to communicate with the people, he began telling them about Jesus, how he was the Son of the only true God, and that he had come to earth to tell everyone of God's love and forgiveness of sin. The people listened attentively, but few responded. "That's all right," said the doctor. "I planted a seed." At every stop, Livingstone also asked if there was a river that flowed east out of the lake. But every person he questioned gave him a different answer. One man declared positively that they could sail right out of the lake on such a river, but the next man said no, they would need to hike overland 50 or even 100 miles before reaching a river of any size. "We're going to have to see for ourselves," Livingstone said stubbornly. But as they made their way along the shore of the Great Lake, trouble began to develop. One night, robbers crept into their camp while they slept and stole nearly all their supplies. The most serious loss was their food and trade goods. The trade goods were important in making friends with new tribes and in paying tolls to the chiefs for permission to pass through their territory. The next night, no one met them when they beached their boat. Pushing into the surrounding jungle, the travelers found a village burned to the ground and strewn with rotting bodies. Ugh. "More tribal warfare," Livingstone muttered, poking through the ruins. "I'll bet the slavers are behind this, too." Once again, the porters insisted that they leave the place of death. They rowed by moonlight until they saw a deserted beach and pulled toward shore. But no sooner had they landed than a large group of warriors ran out of the jungle, painted for war and waving their spears fiercely. "Masitu!" one of the porters cried fearfully. As the warriors advanced, the porters immediately raised their guns. With nothing to trade, Chuma was sure they would have to resort to their guns again to avoid being killed. "Wait!" Livingstone ordered. At the last minute, he rolled up his sleeves and opened his shirt, exposing the whiteness of his skin that had not been tanned by the sun. In the moonlight, his skin shone pale and ghostly. The warriors stopped in their tracks. Cautiously, one moved forward, his spear extended. He brought the tip to Livingstone's chest and drew it down slowly across the skin. The tiny trickle of blood that followed the sharp point looked black rather than red in the strange, pale light. Suddenly the warriors let out a frightened cry, turned, and fled back into the jungle. Startled, the little group stood staring at the dark edge of the jungle that had swallowed up the fierce warriors. One of the porters finally broke the silence. "We must not continue," he declared. "We have no food and nothing to trade for more. The next war party may not be so scared by your trick. It is time to go back." "Yes, yes, we must go back," the others insisted. But Livingstone protested, and there was a big argument. Finally, he convinced the men to go on one more day in hopes of moving out of the war-torn area. They posted guards that night, as had become their custom whenever trouble threatened, and it was Chuma's lot to draw guard duty with Dr. Livingstone because they had set up camp on the open beach. Because they had set up camp on the open beach, no one could approach the camp without being seen. The guards did not have to patrol so much as watch over the camp in the moonlight. Chuma and the doctor chose the top of a small dune near their sleeping companions and sat down. When all was quiet, Chuma said, "Doctor, I would like to become a Christian like you and follow your God." "That's good, Chuma, but tell me, why do you want to do this?" "Well, you could have ordered those warriors shot tonight, but God gave you great courage to do a good thing." "Yes, he did, Chuma. But what if I had not had that courage?" Chuma thought for a while. "I still think you would have wanted the good thing. I think you really love the African people." "But why do you think I love the Africans?" "Because you love God, and God loves all people. That's why God sent his son Jesus to die for us." Chuma grinned, remembering what he had heard the bishop and the doctor say. "That's right, Chuma, and you must remember that. Even if I completely fail to do what's right, Jesus did not fail. Put your trust in him, not in how well other people behave." They listened in quietness to the waves gently lapping at the beach. Then Chuma asked, "But how do I become a Christian?" "Well, you know that we're all sinners, and that's more than occasionally doing an evil thing like lying or stealing. Those, of course, are sins. Even when we try hard to do good, like I'm trying to find a way to stop the slave trade, it doesn't always work out. And sometimes we make things worse and people get hurt. Then we realize how badly we need someone to save us. I know that, and that's what I want. I want Jesus to save me, but how?" "The Bible says, as many as received him, to them he gave power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name." "Do you believe that, Chuma? Do you want to give your life to Jesus?" "Yes." They talked some more, and then Chuma prayed. The next morning, before setting out, Dr. Livingston baptized Chuma in the lake as a new Christian, while the others watched. That night, when the explorers stopped, they were met by local people who laughed at them and thought they were fleeing from the Mazitu. For some reason, Chuma never found out why, a shoving match started between the porters and the villagers that soon broke into a fight with sticks. Livingston did his best to stop it, and the local people finally withdrew sullenly. The travelers made camp, but decided not to sleep by the fire. Instead, they made beds filled with grass to look like sleeping people and crawled away into the nearby tall grass to sleep. Once again, they posted guards to watch over the camp. In the middle of the night, warriors snuck into the camp and stabbed their spears into the fake sleepers. When they realized they'd been fooled, they ran away, thinking that the trick was an ambush. The continual obstacles and constant threat of harm from tribal warriors was too much for the porters. "We must go home," cried all the porters in the morning. "If we do not, we will all die." Reluctantly, Livingston agreed. They had traveled nearly 200 miles up the lake shore, but still the water to the north seemed to run on into the sky. They had not yet discovered a river flowing east to the ocean. On the other hand, they had not proved that a river didn't exist either. As they sailed back down the lake, Chuma noticed that the doctor said very little. Clearly, he was discouraged by their failure. It made Chuma sad, too. They had come so far for nothing. The more the doctor had talked about finding a river going to the ocean so he could start a mission, the more the boy had wanted to help make it happen. Like Livingston, Chuma had been happy when they had a good day traveling or made friends with the local tribespeople, and he was sad when things went wrong. Chuma thought about this as the boat creaked under the sail. Just last summer he was a sheep herder. Now he was traveling with the white doctor who wanted to stop the evil slavers. He didn't understand everything the doctor said, but he did know that Livingston wanted all the tribes to live peacefully with one another. He was a good man. Chuma was only a boy, but he wanted to help Livingston too. As they journeyed southward on the lake, the explorers avoided the areas where they had encountered problems before, but they faced a new problem: the weather. One morning, Wekatani said, "The big winds are coming. We must not go out on the lake today." Everyone looked up at the sky and wondered what he saw. Well, there was some haze in the sky. The sun was bright, and the day seemed like any other. If anything, the breeze was a little lighter than usual. "What do you mean?" laughed Livingston. "It's a beautiful day." He proceeded to get ready to shove off. Chuma knew that Wekatani had gone out frequently on Lake Shira with his father and was probably more familiar with the weather in the area than anyone in the group. but even Chuma thought his friend was mistaken. "The windy season is starting," Wekatani insisted. "It will blow today, and it will blow so hard that we could sink." The boy was truly frightened and at first refused to get into the boat, even after everyone else had climbed in and actually pushed off from the shore. From a few yards offshore, Dr. Livingston called back, "Come on, Wekatani, we don't want to leave you, but we are sailing this morning, so get in the boat." With fearful eyes, the boy waded out to the waiting craft and reluctantly climbed in. He actually shook with fright as he sat down in the bottom of the boat and looked up at the sky. They traveled almost 2 hours under a good breeze and sunny skies when suddenly the wind shifted. Within minutes, it turned into a gale. The waves in the shallow lake grew enormously, driving the little boat toward an angry surf crashing on a rocky shore. Livingston and the boys immediately lowered the sail, and the men began to row with all their might. But still the wind drove them directly toward the rocks. Finally, Livingston ordered, "Drop anchor! It's the only way to keep us out of those breakers." But with the anchor out, the waves broke over the side and filled the boat, threatening to sink it. Everyone bailed out the water as fast as possible. Chuma and Wekatani had nothing to scoop water, so they used their hands. Hour after hour, the little band struggled to keep the boat afloat. Many times, Chuma clung, terrified, to the side of the boat, sure it was going to tip over or sink, and they would all drown. But 6 hours later, the wind finally slackened. Exhausted, the men rowed slowly away from the rocks and beached on a sandy shore. From then on, Dr. Livingston listened to Wekatani's advice when he said a wind was coming up. As a result, they spent many miserable days on shore waiting for the waves to go down. But in Chuma's mind, it was a lot better than bailing water. On October 26th, they arrived again at the south end of the lake. That night, as they all sat dejectedly around the fire, Wekatani said, "Doctor, now can we try going south to Lake Sherwa?" A hush fell over the whole group as everyone's eyes turned toward the doctor. Finally, he said, "All right. In the morning, we'll find a place to hide the boat and set out on foot." But in the morning, the doctor and the boys awoke to a terrible shock. During the night, all the porters had run away.